Hello and welcome back everybody to another episode of From the Heart. And while it has certainly been quite a long time since I've been on this channel, after going on my little camping trip and then away to the lovely lands of Electric Forest, a place where I had an absolute blast, and a place where I was also a little bit stressed. But with this, I finally returned, and it is once again time to share my terrifying tales and anything that I can kind of bring to light of whatever I happen to read and enjoy. And hopefully you are all just as excited as I am. Because like always when I come back from these little hiatuses, these little trips and these little breaks, we will be returning to the land of the gash, to the servitude of the Black Diamond God Leviathan, and into the loving arms of the Hellraiser franchise. Something that we have touched on this channel so many times at this point, and something that everybody really seems to enjoy. But with the structured order of hell itself, this story would tell a tale of something a little bit different. A story that's name would actually be Cenobite, and a story that would once again be about the origins of a Cenobite that we have never really quite seen. About a man named Everett who has been brought up through order and structure through his entire life. A man who has been raised since adolescence by the church and the sisterhood, and a man who has been passed through the cog-like machine that is war in the late 1980s. A man that has always followed the rules, and a man that has always followed direction, while at the same time craving utter chaos. And on top of all this is really one of the only times that I've seen the Lament Cube being literally hand-delivered out of nowhere to somebody with a desire to unlock it, and to somebody who has absolutely no idea what this is. We've seen this before, but in this instance, it would actually seem like this man was kind of destined to have this. And with a man who would completely and utterly crave chaos for every being of his body, by the end of the story, we would watch this man fall back down into the most structured job that he would ever have in his life. So everybody, I've been off this channel for a little bit. I'm gonna be a little bit rusty, but hopefully this video will kind of go along smoothly and everything will just kind of follow and tail. And without further ado, let's turn down our lights, let's get everything that we could possibly need to sit down and enjoy this story all the way through, and let's just get right into it. And where this would all begin is with, a very tragic incident of a man slaying his own wife. You see, Barbara, I'm not hooked on order. I just acted on impulse. Barbara uttered war. And with the next panel, we would see this man Everett walking through a foggy, mystical door. And on the other side, something all too familiar. A labyrinth-like system with cage grating all over the walls, as this man would realize that he's lost. But in this state of unknowing, he would finally find what he's been looking for his entire life. You should have seen this, Barbara. Tasted this confusion, this sweet chaos. And with our next panel, we would be greeted by the giant Black Diamond God of Leviathan himself, in one of the biggest pinup pictures that I've ever really seen throughout these comic books yet. And as Everett would stand there, beaming in fear, intimidation, and awe all at the same time, would realize that he has finally found his final master. Oh my lord, High Leviathan, Master of the Labyrinth and Archduke of Chaos, I beseech thee, enter now the world, and let chaos rule. And as we're looking at this panel of Everett just kind of screaming about chaos in the midst of Leviathan himself, I do find this just a little bit cringy. I do find this just a little bit, a little edgelord, this man needs to watch his step before he manages to cut himself on all that edge. But as all this is going on, a noise will begin to ensue Everett, as we begin to dart his eyes around at the pitch blackness of the world of the gash, and noticing a sensation overcoming his body. And with the next couple of panels, we would either see something completely enveloping this man, or Everett falling down into the depths of something that he has never really quite understood, let alone known. As the eerie buzzing would continue, and suddenly this man will be lost in memories of old, into the sisterhood, and into the church that raised him. What is your name, boy? Edward Leverett, sister. Here, you'll answer to the name of Leverett. You're to look after this new boy. Bartlett's his name, and make sure that he behaves. Bartlett shit his sheets again, Leverett. Clear it up, and teach him not to do it again. And with the coming panels, we would see something that would happen all across this story, where Everett himself would be put into a strange sort of leadership, and a place where he would need to exude discipline. And even though this man has searched out chaos his entire life, he would quickly fall in line. And with the next couple of panels, we would see this man berating this little boy, calling him a dirty little shitter, mocking this young child, and instead of actually teaching this young boy a lesson, and something that once again we'll see throughout throughout this entire story, is using a form of trauma, manipulation, and shame to essentially get what he wants out of all these people around him. All these different cogs in the machine. All these people that he would need to kind of put in place in order to receive the acceptance that he's always wanted. And with this would only come the guilt. But I had to maintain discipline and order. The sisters told me I was in charge. If one sinned, we all suffered. And with the next few panels, we would see Everett descending deep and down into the labyrinth, falling and falling until something much more familiar would come across the page, as we'd see all these chains and hooks beginning to pierce his body, to pierce his skin and to hold him in place. And with this, Everett would scream out, "Why am I being punished?" And suddenly, out of nowhere, Everett will be placed right back into another memory that he's always tried to avoid. Another place for you to go too far and exude this punishment onto the people around him, rather than to actually teach the lessons that would be needed to actually exude any kind of persistence or discipline. As suddenly, we would see this terrifying and moored face of one of his sergeants. "Everett, you are a bag of shit tied with a ribbon. Now tell me, what are you?" "I'm a bag of shit, sir. One of your squad ran away, Everett. You're supposed to maintain discipline." And with the next couple of panels, we would see a torturous event that Everett would put his subordinates under, as we would see this man wrapped in towel, strapped down to a chair, and essentially being waterboarded with none other than bleach, to actually be scrubbed clean, as Everett began to chant, "Dirty, filthy deserter. Dirty, filthy deserter." And with these terrifying and shameless memories coming to a close, we would once again cut back to Everett being changed in the land of Leviathan, in the world of the gash, where more and more of these fishhook razor wires would entangle his entire body. And more Everett will begin to scream in horror and shock, wondering exactly why he is being punished for the things that he felt he had to do. "You don't understand. He was a piece of grit in the machine. He had to be dealt with. He dishonored the regiment. The others expected me to. Even Barbara understood that." And suddenly with the next panel, everything would cut to black and white, and Everett would be transported into one of his most shameful memories of his entire life, and something that he never really came to terms with, and something that he still never really felt a need for punishment on his part. As suddenly we would cut over to the Falkland Wars, something that actually happened in Argentina in, I believe, 1989. And while I don't know a ton about this, it's always extremely interesting to see how these Hellraiser comic books manage to kind of wrap real-world history into their stories, and something that for some reason always manages to make these things feel just a little bit more dirty, a little more real. Whether it's tying in terrible dictators or bringing us to a woman who just wants to own her very own Disneyland, and yes, that is a real thing, it's something that always just brings a real horror element to the story. "Oh, please no. Not this. Please don't make me. Don't make me look at the Falklands. New orders from Battalion HQ, sir. I can't hear you, Corporal. Too much noise. Our orders are to take the Argentine position." "But sir, Private Jones needs help. We must." "Are you disobeying my order, Corporal?" "It's alright, Jones. We're just going to capture that schoolhouse, and then we'll be right back for you." "Please, sir. I don't want to die." "The flesh is weak, Corporal. You have to subdue." "Don't worry. There'll be a medal in this for you, too. When I give the signal, you attack the target I specified. Now!" And with these last couple panels, it's something that I really found strange, because while it would seem that Everett was given orders to actually, evade the enemy, to help the surrounding people that lay about him dying, this man would still ensue the target. And whether this is a matter of him being afraid that he hasn't imposed enough discipline, or that he'll simply be blamed for the people around him's mistakes, it would only seem that Everett has his own agenda, to actually let all these people die around him. And with this would only ensue one of the very last punishments that this man would take, in something that obviously is very well deserved, but something that Everett would yet again never really understand. And while I'm not really sure if this is all just a matter of how this person was raised, actually having different kids under him and actually, being persecuted for their faults, and even if this is really the case, it really doesn't seem that Everett really took the steps to actually teach these people anything, to actually go out of his way to actually help these people. It would seem that Everett would always put these people in even worse situations, instead of actually taking the right route, the route to help, love, and show compassion in places that he was never shown himself. But with the next coming panels, we would see this battalion storming the Falklands schoolhouse. My grandfather was in the trenches of the First World War. He would have understood. And suddenly, Everett would launch a grenade into the schoolhouse building. And as the smoke would clear out and the embers would come to a dull orange, Everett would realize that his mission is finally complete. "Well, Jenkins, we made it." "Yes, sir. We did." And with the next panel, a fellow battalion would come in and tell them to drop their guns. We find that the defendant disobeyed a direct order, and by doing so, led 2 of his men to their deaths, and further so, ignored medical attention for another one of his subordinates, subsequently lending itself to the loss of a leg. It is the judgment of this court-martial that the defendant should be imprisoned for no less than 3 years, and dishonorably discharged from the service. You see, they betrayed me! I gave them everything and they betrayed me, and what for? 3 plebs and a gammy leg. And with the next panel, we would finally see the final transformation of Everett himself, a being utterly and completely wrapped in guilt, and a being who would essentially be casted into a role that he would utterly hate for the rest of eternity, or for however long a Cenobite can live. I'm not really sure if they have any form of mortality, or if the only thing that really brings them to their end is Leviathan essentially being done with them. But nonetheless, we would be greeted to a ragdoll-like creature. And as we look over to the right to one of these strange structures of the giant labyrinth that would surround him, we would see yet another Cenobite approaching, and somebody who would only ask him who he is. But before we get into any of this, we would cut back in time to the place where this all began, to before the slewing of his own wife, and how he actually came across the Lamarcane cube, and to the final straw that would levy such obsession and desire, leaving Everett in his own kind of hell for the rest of eternity. This is weird, Barbara. The package was in our mailbox, but it's for somebody called Strickland. What's the address on it? I can't read it. It was sent from London though. Well anyways, honey, I'm late. I'll see you at the gallery for the private view at 6 sharp. Your work may be based in chaos, but punctuality pays. And Edward, make nice with these people, please. If you want to sell anything, you'll have to, okay? Okay. And Edward, you can just drop the packet in the mail on your way in this evening. Dear Mr. Strickland, enclosed the Lament Configuration, variously known as Lamarcane's box, after its creator Philip Lamarcane, or the invitation to chaos. It is a supposed key to which when solved opens the doors to hell, and gives admittance to the orders of chaos and their lord Leviathan. Another source names it the Goddard Demagogue Technique. This I take to imply that it will bring about the twilight of the gods, and indicates that chaos will triumph. And Edward's obsession would only continue to grow and grow. The phone would begin to ring over and over and over and over again. And who this would happen to be would be his wife, trying to figure out why exactly this man never showed up to his own art gallery. After all, essentially his entire livelihood would remain on these paintings selling, these paintings of utter chaos. And at this point, his wife has had enough of all the excuses of being confused, and all these different tactics that Edward has used his past life into not having to fulfill his obligations. And as twilight would come and the moon would rise, finally, Barbara would come home. Edward, it's midnight, and I've been calling you from the gallery for the past 3 hours. Edward, talk to me. Let go of my hair. I don't know why you didn't come tonight. This seemed important. Will you please stop using your confusion as an excuse? I know it's safe, and nobody asked you to make a decision, but it's adolescent, and you've got to be organized. Order betrayed me. Give us your love, they said. Give us your hopes, your fears, and trust, and be not afraid. We will make the decisions for you, and in return, you will serve us and maintain discipline. Okay, so the army wasn't right for you, but there has to be order. Order is unnatural. Even the scientists admit to that. The universe will not conform to the grand unified theory, for physical existence and everything dissolves into chaos. What is it you are looking for, Edward? Some mystical state of perfect being? So you think that returning to the primeval stew is some form of enlightenment? And if it means setting the devil amongst mankind to teach him his hubris, then so be it. You can have no idea of how pathetic you really are. So you are to be the messiah of chaos. Edward, you moved from the twisting streets of London to the grid system of Manhattan. Your mugs all hang in the same direction, and the phone is always replaced to the right position. Face it, Edward, you're hooked. And with the next couple of panels, we would see Edward holding up this ancient-looking knife. And I don't really know if this came with the package itself, if it was maybe the final puzzle piece that would actually come to unlock his, desire to open this puzzle box, for his desire for chaos instead of ordered structure. But what this would mean bad news for Barbara. As with the next panel, we would look into the eyes of Edward himself, and we would see none other than the patterns of the Lamarcane configuration traced upon his eyes. And suddenly, everything would go black, and the being that we once watched march forward towards Edward's final transformation would only come back in full. Name: Edward Everett. From now on, you do not have a name, and you are a Cenobite. Your sole purpose, to impose order on the world of the flesh, and your sole reason, because Leviathan desires it. But the box, it said chaos would rule. It was a lie, child. A trap designed for you alone. Chaos already rules the world of the flesh, and you will learn to fight it. You will live behind their world, and you will not question. You will pervert, destroy, corrupt, and above all, you will obey. The holy war will be won. Leviathan will triumph over all flesh and order will succeed chaos. At last, I have a commander. No, a master, truly worthy of that name. At last, I am slave. And this would seem to be the end of our story, and something that I didn't really necessarily understand, because throughout this entire story, it would seem that, Everett really wanted chaos over everything. Even with those kind of edgy speeches about the universe will not conform to the scientific theories and all these different things, or chaos will rule, and all these different things, towards the end of it, Edward would finally bend to his final master. And whether this is more of a comforting situation for him, as a man who has been raised by the church, the sisterhood, as well as the army itself, always kind of following in line with whatever being's told to him, and kind of being forced to dole out these kinds of discipline in some of the worst kinds of ways that, Everett could have really done. It just seems a little weird to me that this man would come to kind of fully accept his new position as a Cenobite. And on top of all this, I believe this is only the second time that we've really ever seen a Cenobite kind of go after one particular person, to actually fully seek them out, with the only other person that really comes to mind at this point being Face himself, being kind of lended his first face to kind of strap over his face. Something that, I hate when I do those videos about Face, because it says the word, FACE so many different times, and I get a little bit confused at points trying to figure out what exactly I'm going to be talking about. But overall, I gotta say, I really did enjoy the artwork of this story. I think it was extremely gritty, very realistic all at the same time, and on top of all this, just kind of interesting to actually watch this man go through all these different folds of life, to kind of make all the wrong decisions in ways that he thought he was doing, justfully so. And it's only another one of those Hellraiser stories that I really did come to enjoy. It's not something kind of silly like we've seen in the trainer, or with like the VR simulation and things like that, but a story that really begs the question of, morality, of what exactly is going on in this man's head to actually make him come to terms with all these different things that he's done, to actually let his comrades around him fall and die, to lose their lives and lose their legs, to literally wash a man with bleach and tell him that he's a filthy deserter, and all the way to telling a little boy that he's a dirty pants shitter. Alright, these are things that, they're fairly cruel, and I don't really know how to feel about that. But yes, everybody, I'm glad to be back. I hope you all enjoyed that story, and hopefully we'll be getting into a little more of that. I'm going to be also trying to kind of tap into some new genres at some point, like I'm always talking about. I really would like to tap into some longer stories, but I guess my main concern is that it's going to take so long to actually push those out, and I don't want anybody to kind of lose interest in this channel. So if you do have some feedback, if you would like to see some longer videos, talk to me down below, kind of give me that inspiration, let me know, it's alright if you don't put a video out every single week. And if you want to see what one of these longer videos will look like, I very heavily, especially if you're new, would kind of implore you to go check out my last Swamp Thing video. It's over an hour long, and it's something that I was extremely proud about, and yes, I actually, over my break, ended up reading a little more of Swamp Thing, kind of rereading the last segment that I want to cover on this channel, and I do think it's going to be happening soon, alright? It's not quite as long as I remember, so I'm a little bit less intimidated, but there is a few other videos that I kind of like to push out, kind of get the channel back into a flow before, I'm gone for another 2-3 weeks editing out that monster of a video that I know it's going to be. But yes, everybody, I don't want to ramble too much, and I'm sorry if I was a little rusty, like I said, it's been a little while, and it's always intimidating coming back after a few weeks of not actually recording anything, so, hopefully it was good, and I guess it just is what it is, and we're just gonna keep on trucking along, and maybe here in the future I'll kind of make a video about what I've been doing during my vacation. I got to actually go with a bunch of family members to this really cool cabin. It actually had like a hot tub inside of it, so it was a little bit of a glamping situation, but overall, you know, it was a fun experience, and I actually got to sit down and read and kind of listen to all my weird, creepy cassette tapes and stuff. It was very nice. It was very relaxing, and then like I said, right after that, I went immediately over to Electric Forest, and that was a whole nother thing, alright? That was my first full-on, like, camping trip at a music festival. We stayed there for a total of 4 or 5 days, and it was extremely fun, but I don't really do well in huge crowds of people, and this is an event that holds over 50,000 people at one time. And it was very cool. Very stressful at the same time, but got to see a lot of the EDM artists that I, you know, wanted to see. But we're getting off track. But anyways, everybody, like I said, it's very nice to be back. I would love to talk to some of you down in the comments. And I just thank you all so much for coming back and watching this video. And I will see you on the next episode of From the Heart with twisted tales and very sweet and heartwarming tales. You know, I try to keep this channel in a very emotional roller coaster. And the last message I'd like to tell you is I'm sorry if I look very sweaty. It's super hot in Michigan. I am dying up in this room. I have a light behind me. I have a light in front of me. The window's completely blocked out. And yeah, it's warm in here. But anyway, everybody, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode of From the Heart.